creating a YouTube channel for Go Green Illinois, or perhaps posting on Go Green Wilmette's YouTube channel. So we also have a fair number of new names. And so if you are relatively new, if this is your first or second group meeting, we'd love for you to add in the chat what community you're from, because we didn't know with all of the names. So my name is Beth Drucker with Go Green Wilmette, and Kim Stone is my co-facilitator here, or the co-facilitator of Go Green Illinois. And Liz Kunkel of Go Green Winnetka offered to put this program together, which we eagerly accepted. And so that allowed Kim to get reelected as councilwoman, and me to get some other work done while Liz worked hard on putting this program together. We have a couple of special announcements that I'd like to mention at the beginning in case some of you have to sign off early. And Maria, who is the Go Green Wilmette intern, hopefully she's going to be able to put some of these links into the chat. So want to make sure you all know about the pollinator bill, HB 3118. It has been sparked by a 10-year-old from Winnetka called Scarlett Harper. If you're on Instagram, search for Scarlett Harper. She is our personal Greta Thunberg. She's amazing. So this would be to regulate the backyard barrier spraying for mosquitoes by private contractors. It's happening all over in Wilmette. It's devastating to pollinators, and it's probably not good for our health either. So that's a really important thing. Midwest Goes Green and the North Shore Mosquito Abatement District, working with Catherine Calkins from Go Green Wilmette, put together a fact sheet about why these barrier treatments are harmful. And you can find that on the Midwest Goes Green website, but Maria may be able to put the link in. We also wanted to remind all of you that the Illinois Environmental Council is a group that we think you should belong to. They are the eyes, the ears, and the voice of the environmental community in the state of Illinois, and they are very good at sending out alerts for witness slips. This is the new way that you could promote a bill in Springfield. So if each of your groups could learn how to do witness slips and sign up for the Illinois Environmental Council, they can send you the updates. Community solar continues to be growing in Illinois, and it's now available for small businesses and faith communities. There's a special webinar just for those groups on May 26th. You can register for that at the link that Maria is going to put in, or find the meeting at the Go Green Wilmette website. There's a great composting food scrap that some of our speakers will, composting fact sheet that some of our speakers may talk about. And it is available at a link that should be in the chat, but I know you'll hear more about this. Also, we have been meeting about the leaf blower issue, which seems to be a big issue in a lot of communities. We had a big meeting a month ago. We're going to have a follow-up meeting this Friday at 10. There's a registration link that Maria hopefully will be able to put into the chat, or contact me at beth@gogreenwilmette.org if you want to make sure you can register for that meeting. And then finally, the state of Illinois desperately needs renewable energy legislation. It's been put on the back burner for a variety of reasons. So there's 3 variations: CEJA, Clean Energy Jobs Act, Path to 100, which is specifically about solar solutions. And then Governor Pritzker also put out a 3rd law. And ideally, the best of those 3 laws are going to be combined into one legislation, and it's definitely going to need the support of groups like all of ours. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to Liz Kunkel. Again, for those of you who just signed on, welcome. If you are new to the group, please add to the chat. Let us know what community that you're representing. At the after we have several speakers and Q&A for each speaker, we will have community sharing starting at about 2:10. This is where you can learn what other groups are doing, and we encourage you to take notes, make contacts with those people, and copy whatever another group is doing that you think would work well in your community. So with that, we're turning it over to Liz Kunkel. Who's muted?
I'm trying to unmute. Go faster. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm super excited to facilitate this conversation on waste recovery, reduction, diversion, and composting in Illinois. I got the idea for this meeting because I kind of fortuitously became involved with a number of different committees and task forces at the regional, state, and national levels over the last 6 to 8 months. And I was really, I was excited, obviously, about the work they're all doing, and felt like honestly, our Go Green Illinois group is the best network to share this information with. As consumers of it ourselves, and also as ambassadors for our communities and local governments and all those other stakeholders. So I just, I'm really grateful that it all came together the way it did. All of the committees and organizations that I've been excited about joining the last few months, specifically are focused on waste reduction and food scrap specifically. And obviously I'm all the more excited about the timing of this meeting because last week, in case you didn't know it, was International Compost Awareness Week. And I just made you aware of it. So there, see, that's how it works. So I'm, like I said, I'm super excited to moderate this discussion. We've got 3 amazing speakers from different organizations around our state that are all involved with waste, again, reduction and diversion efforts and composting efforts in different ways. What we're going to do is let each of the 3 speakers speak and then save a question and answer period for after the speakers are done. We don't have an official Q&A. It's not a webinar. So please enter any questions that you have for the speakers in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to them all in order. So what I'll do is introduce each speaker one at a time so I don't lose all the introduction. So our first speaker is going to be James Jennings. He is the manager of the Illinois EPA's Waste Reduction and Compliance section, and he's part of the team that is facilitating the Materials Management Advisory Committee, which is a state-level task force responsible for investigating current recycling and solid waste practices and recommending options to the General Assembly to divert wastes from Illinois landfills. So, James, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Liz. And then just a quick procedural question. Do you need me to share my screen for my presentation, or?
Yes, please,
okay,
if that
perfect.
works.
Yeah.
We were back up.
All right. Oh, as Liz said, I'm James Jennings. I manage IEPA's Waste Reduction and Compliance section. And our team has spent the significant part of the last year and a half helping coordinate the activities of the statewide Materials Management Advisory Committee while working entirely remotely. This really weaves nicely into some of our broader policy objectives that have been undertaken for the past 10 to 15 years by the agency, which include things like supporting local collection events. Many of you all may have participated in any one of our household hazardous waste, medication take-back events that are populated throughout the state. We've also, in recent years, dedicated an increasing amount of our time to try to produce educational content using the fact that we have a statewide platform. One of the luxuries that we have is that because of our group touches a lot of local solid waste agencies and local departments of public health, particularly in Southern Illinois, we have the ability to make inroads into areas that otherwise might not have the bandwidth to pick up some of the content that we really want to be able to push to areas of the state that could benefit from participating in programs that have the effect of minimizing the volume of material that goes to landfills. Over the past 4 years, we've been working to develop a structure to help rebuild the statewide grant program that was previously housed by DCEO. In 2017, an executive order was signed transitioning all of the historic market development infrastructure, including composting infrastructure grants, to the agency from DCEO. As a regulatory agency, some of our obligations are actually a little more stringent than things were set up at DCEO, and consequently, we've had to take a variety of steps that perhaps weren't contemplated at the time of the executive order. That being said, we're in a position now where, as you'll see in the coming slides, we've got some really exciting recommendations that are going to be forthcoming and should put us in a position to help facilitate some really significant awards that could meaningfully enhance the volume of material, particularly food scraps, that are diverted from Illinois landfills.
Hey,
And then
James,
finally, we want to make sure that we're,
James,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We're not seeing your screen, if you think you're sharing it yet.
Okay, that is, let's try.
Sorry about that, guys. And there we go.
All right, that's better.
Sorry about that, everyone. Thanks,
All
James.
right, all right. Well, so I mean, the good thing is you didn't miss any of the actual substantive content. I was effectively reading what was on here. So the last thing, though, that we've historically done is endeavor to partner with as diverse a group of stakeholders as we can. I mean, as a statewide regulatory agency, we have a interest in a lot of different areas, and consequently, it's incumbent upon us to ensure that we're addressing the needs of all of our constituents. And we've worked within our group to weave that into how we approach developing policy solutions to generate a more sustainable Illinois going forward. So 2 years ago, Governor Pritzker signed a bill that created the statewide Materials Management Advisory Committee. And at the time, the concept was for us to effectively craft what would amount to a statewide solid waste management plan, which is something that nearly every other state in the country has, and it's looking increasingly likely that it could be one of the prerequisites for obtaining federal funding. And so 25 of us met in Springfield last February, all in person, all unmasked, which now seems totally foreign, and sort of opaquely discussed the possibility that we may need to do some things remotely going forward. But we were all very optimistic that we would, by this time, have a viable document ready to go to the General Assembly outlining all of our policy recommendations. And so then COVID happened, as we all know. And so the 3 months following our first meeting materially impacted how the direction we were going to go, the data gathering we'd be undertaking, and how we were going to try to project what meaningful improvements actually look like for the state. I mean, I've got some items included here that we saw early on, things like curbside collection being narrowed because of misunderstandings on transmission, budget cutbacks, pulling back other really valuable services to communities. And so that informed how we went forward. We were really fortunate to have a highly engaged group of members on the committee, some of whom, particularly Kay, who's on the call today, were integral to allowing us to keep going forward. But then we also were fortunate to be able to work with the Illinois Sustainable Technology Center to help us data mine as much information as we could, despite some of the inherent limitations that were put on us by COVID. And so this is really what we will be sending to the General Assembly about 6 weeks from today. The bill that crafted our committee requires the group to provide a snapshot of where we are right now. So a composition of statewide waste information, analysis of existing markets, and then figure out where we want to go in light of that. And so identifying the materials to target for diversion, and then how, once we've made that identification, how we go from where we are today to a less landfill heavy state than we are right now. Given the role of local government in Illinois materials management, there's also a really significant portion of the bill and of the report that will be coming dedicated to making the administration of some of these objectives as minimally burdensome on local government as possible, acknowledging that with 102 counties, some of which have more bandwidth to pick this up than others, we want to be sure that we're not placing any community at a disadvantage just by virtue of geography, economics, or any other factor that may differentiate Cairo from Chicago. And so we've met, I know actually today, because I've been working on a version of our report, we have had 15 meetings of our entire committee, and collectively between the various subcommittees that we have, we've had over 100 meetings. And so for those of us who've been on almost all of the calls, like myself, Kay, Walter Willis, Jen Jarland, it has been a lot of use of WebEx and Zoom, but we are very close to the finish line. The group has to comply with the State Open Meetings Act, and as a result, there's some parliamentary processes for actually getting things adopted. And so right now, we've had a slate of recommendations that have been cleared, and then a slate that are forthcoming. So what's on the screen right now are a summary of what we already know will be going to the General Assembly. One of the primary theses behind this is that, as I state, it is imperative that we provide adequate support to statewide materials management programs. And so Kay's group strongly advocated for appropriating $1 million to a statewide education and outreach campaign, highlighting, among other things, how to properly participate in curbside composting programs and the value of being able to divert these materials from landfills. So effectively making sure that not only are we hitting the people who need the information and we can persuade, but also that we're reinforcing the best ways to approach expanding these type of programs. We're also recommending that $1 million a year be appropriated to a market development grant program. We're actually modeling this after a program that was successfully piloted in Colorado, Michigan, and Indiana that would enable us to almost have a sort of quasi Shark Tank approach where outside experts would be able to vet the viability of individual projects that would then be potentially eligible for statewide funding. As constructed, this covers a wide range of potential projects, including AD expansion, compost facility enhancements, as well as the type of MRF and end market improvements that Colorado focused on. Then, in addition to that, something that was frustrating early on was some of the gaps in statewide data management. Among the states within US EPA's Region 5, Illinois is sort of a unicorn in that we don't have statewide recycling or the level of detail in statewide composting reporting. Consequently, that meant that Shantanu Pai's team was having to do a lot of digging and a lot of extrapolation to be able to determine where we were right now. And that put us on the back foot starting off, even before any of the limitations from COVID-19. And so there's a suite of recommendations that seek to remedy that, so that when this exercise is repeated in 5 years or 10 years, we're not having to figure out where our starting point is. We'll have a sound arsenal of data with which to proceed, so that way we can focus entirely on policy development and best practices rather than figuring out the best way to count. And then there's some additional thoughts on mapping. Right now, the state employs a very effective mapping tool to allow residents to figure out where they can take some of their additional materials that are typically hard to recycle or couldn't go in the composting services that are available in many locations at your curbside. We want to expand on that. I mean, the information we have right now is tied to state permitting. Not everybody is permitted, and not everything that the public needs is going to be an IEPA permitted facility. And so we're looking to remedy the public knowledge gap by compiling that information. So these are the set of recommendations that are pending. These are items that haven't been voted on yet, but around which there appears to be a growing consensus. One that I would flag at the outset are the additional $1 million in appropriations for infrastructure grants. Walt Willis's subcommittee on infrastructure wrapped up this month, and their final document included a proposal for these recommendations. They'll be voted on by our entire committee at the end of the month, and if this meeting were 3 weeks from today, that would have been on the previous slide. We're also taking a creative approach to how we're going to target materials for diversion. A fear of ours was that none of us can tell the future. And so absent that degree of clairvoyance, we didn't want to author a report that in 3 years would be out of date because there were new materials in the marketplace that would potentially impact our decision making. And so Shantanu's group, in conjunction with the rest of the committee, developed a stratified approach to identifying materials that fit certain criteria And then based on which of those criteria they fit, there would be individual policy solutions. And so, for example, a material that is very pervasive, that there's collection infrastructure set up, but there are weaker markets, the potential medicine for that would be to address the markets and funnel some of the market development funding toward those. And as time evolves, materials would certainly be able to go between strata just based on their existing realities. And then the biggest item is our statewide diversion targets. This is actually a procedural oversight on our end. We've had consensus on these numbers and on the methodology used to develop them. They were just never actually put to a vote because of the noticing process that's been set forth. So that'll be another item that's going to be on the table at the end of the month, just so that we can remedy that that oversight. And so this group will have two more primary meetings. We will meet at the end of this month to vote on the suite of recommendations that are currently available. Then the objective is that we'll again meet in June to vote on the final version of the report that will go to the General Assembly. And from there, the real work begins, which ties into something that the agency was already working on. Well, this would have been in 2019, so well prior to the advent of this group. When the new administration took over, one of the requests they had to each agency was to identify 1-year, 5-year, and 10-year objectives for improving the state within your regulatory area. And this was one that the agency proposed to the new governor's office and one they accepted as a 10-year objective. And so the agency was working for the 8 months prior to COVID, and then is now using the work of the advisory committee as a springboard to try to achieve the goals that are set forth here. I mean, the governor's office was receptive to the idea of a reduction in food waste that's landfilled by 50% by 2030. That's congruent with what US EPA has proposed, and it reflects the reality that this touches so many facets of life that it's imperative that we take a stand now before the problem gets worse. And to this point, we've been using much of the toolkit that has been successfully implemented elsewhere to help achieve that end. We've been working with a collection of retailers to develop a framework to connect generators to other non-disposal outlets. And then we've begun work on some education opportunities to be able to push this information out. And then perhaps the most behind the scenes, but also most difficult, is working to develop a regulatory proposal to alleviate some of the barriers that are currently existing on facilities that can accept food that cannot be eaten. We're optimistic, depending on the board's acceptance, that we'll be able to actually propose these rules by the end of the summer, that for the first time since the mid-90s, we'll revisit the composting and AD regulatory infrastructure in Illinois. So I know that I'm over time. I wanted to make sure I covered that, though. So my contact information is there. I mean, I'm always happy to answer questions, chime in if you have anything. So I will, Liz, I will turn it back over to you.
Thanks so much, James. Before I introduce Kay, I do have one follow-up question. Do you know, is there an expectation regarding when the public might see a forward-facing version of the recommendations in some sort of guidance?
Yeah, so because like all government agencies, when we do something that we think it will go over well, we're going to issue a press release. So what will likely happen with this will be that once it's sent to the General Assembly, we'll have a corresponding press release with a link to the document, and it'll be available. It'll be pushed on all of our social media, and then would be available to the public in general.
Awesome. I'm excited about it. Thank you. Thank you so much, James. So I'm going to, I'll introduce our second speaker, as I said. That speaker is Kay McKeen. As James mentioned, Kay is an active member of the Materials Management Advisory Committee. She's also a founding member of the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition, which Stephanie will speak on behalf of and about next. And then Kay is also the founder and executive director of SCARCE, which is the School and Community Assistance for Recycling and Compost Education. SCARCE is a nonprofit environmental education organization located in Addison. Kay provides presentations on topics including composting, recycling, pollution prevention, and water conservation, has launched several successful special recycling collections, including a famous pumpkin smash event, which is a great post-Halloween event every year that hopefully we'll hear about. And she is also an expert on the proper disposal of various household items. So as you can tell, Kay is the glue that holds all of this together. So I thought she was a perfect speaker on this panel. So Kay, thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Hi, everybody. I'm getting a little technical help here to get my PowerPoint up. Nice to recognize some of you. Hi, Jacqueline. Hi, Barb.
All right, there you go. You're up and running.
So Liz, thanks for that introduction, kind of covered some of it. We are a not-for-profit, and this is our starting our 31st year and coming up in August. We are often considered by not-for-profits and schools kind of like the behind-the-scenes resource for those not-for-profits, whether it's churches, hospitals, schools, park districts, libraries. We do a lot of that kind of work. So I've been lucky to serve on different committees, and I have really enjoyed working with James. I have learned a ton. I don't know how people went to all 100 meetings. We had enough roses on this call. We had enough work researching just for the Education and Outreach Committee of the Illinois Materials Management. That was a lot of work, but I have learned a ton, and I've enjoyed working with everybody that we have been able to work with. So SCARCE, yes, education. So we have graduate credit classes for teachers. We have in-services. We have workshops. We work with libraries, schools, cities. We work closely with DuPage County, and some of our funding comes from contracts with DuPage County for the Earth Flag program. And the Earth Flag program is for churches, towns, schools, park districts, libraries, businesses, you name it, we've given out that Earth Flag. And then we work with water quality, you name it. We try to work on energy conservation. We feel fortunate to get to do what we get to do. We work all over the state, and we're eager to be a resource for anybody on this call. And by the way, you guys, thank you for everybody who's on this call trying to get something done in their own communities. It's really critical that we have that base right in our own communities to find out what's needed and how we can get something done. So we rescue books, and that's kind of where the word scarce comes from. Lots of kids right here in Illinois do not have textbooks, do not have storybooks, do not have reference books. Lots of teachers do not have classroom sets. So when I started, I built Wheaton's Recycling Center in 1986. And as soon as I built it, people started saying, what about books? What about books? And I tried all the usual AAUW and libraries for books, but there were so many books, neither of them took. And those books look great. So it was sort of, if you build it, will they come? And we built SCARCE in the basement in 1991 after being in my garage, and the rest is history. Not-for-profit and teachers have chosen over 8.5 million books. We're getting close to 9 million. These are books that traditionally have gone in the landfill, paperback, hardcover, and everything in between. Every single state in our country has received books from our program, and 105 additional countries that we know of, whether people do it with mission trips with their church, they're going on a road trip and they take stuff for us. We've been able to get books, medical supplies, musical instruments all over the world. So when I mean everything, it started with books, and then teachers said, do you ever get crayons? And do you get rulers? And we're like, what? You don't have rulers and you don't have staplers. And so it's kind of really has come from the not-for-profits telling us what they need, and then we go out and try and find it. So this gentleman with his arm around a skeleton of the Robert Crown Center in Hinsdale closed and had 3 skeletons. Those are $1,200 a piece. So he teaches medical art, so drawing for the medical profession, and he didn't have a skeleton in his classroom. The gentleman in the middle came to drop off books and found out we had chairs to get their kindergarten preschool, having free chairs. The books are organized by great volunteers, retired principals, superintendents, school librarians, and volunteers who care about literacy. We started 5 literacy programs at the jail. You can see the sheriff there in that bottom left, well, to me, left picture. We started 5 programs, and we filled both their libraries. When he started being sheriff, they had 1 dictionary. All books have to be paperback and no violence. So now both libraries are full of books, and 5 literacy programs. The guy in the middle with the guitar, there's a thing called Guitars for Veterans. It's a post-traumatic stress music therapy program. So people give us guitars, and then we have high school kids who have a punch, and they punch those gift cards that you get, and they punch out guitar picks. And we've been able to save guitars for vets money, and those gift cards are not recyclable, so that resource gets used one more time. Broken crayons become super crayons for kids with special needs. We work very closely in Orland Park. There's the Pediatric Oncology Treasure Chest Foundation, and they just picked up 39 boxes of brand new books to help kids in chemotherapy programs in hospitals around the country, 62 hospitals. So luckily for us, 2 volunteers started taking the books that were really not for kids in schools and started a scarcely used, because they're in very good shape, books and records. Musical records are in now, as you know. And so Jim and Susan run this section for us to help pay the rent and keep our lights on. They're a fabulous way to reuse things that really are not for schools. So books, any and all books, school and office supplies, art supplies, musical instruments, crayons, records, CDs, DVDs. These are things for reuse. We can't list every ruler and stapler, but honestly, with so many businesses downsizing during COVID, we have gotten in 300 staplers and packages of staples and binder clips. It's amazing what teachers and not-for-profits, animal shelters are able to get from us. And just little things that we always say that little things make a difference. So bread tags, this little guy, Colton, lives in West Chicago in DuPage County, and bread tags are turned in by the young lady in the yellow t-shirt to a plastic recycler in Indiana. When she turns in those bread tags, they give her money and she buys kids wheelchairs. So I think we're on wheelchair number 9 now. We just had a school in Hinsdale, the Lane School, that collected over 60,000 bread tags, and they'll be turning them in here at the end of the month of May. Bread tags cannot go in a recycling bin. They're way too small. They're all made very much the same. They're the same thickness, so they melt uniformly, and we're able to get a kid a free wheelchair. So we call that a win-win-win. It's an easy way for people to be part of a solution. So then we help everybody. So the cooking oil project started with, what do people do with that oil when they fry a turkey? They pour it down storm drains, thinking vegetable oil is not motor oil. So we worked with the Illinois Environmental Council. Of course, you all know, I hope, Jen Walling and Beth, thank you for encouraging people to join the Illinois Environmental Council. Jen was our intern many years ago, and we wrote this law. We saw a problem, we wrote the law. Medicine disposal, we worked on that with another state representative. And then we got grants from the DuPage Foundation and eScript to bind police stations medicine collection bins. Syringe disposal, that 1 in 12 homes has syringes. The holiday lights, so that we rescue the copper. And of course, it doesn't become a tangler at sorting facilities. Food rescue is top on my list. We wrote the law quite a few years ago to allow schools to have share tables. And luckily for us, it came out at the same time that the federal government, about the same time, came out with an encouraging memo to ask schools to have share tables. I don't know what will happen to that post-COVID, but we're still going to work very much on food rescue, whether it's grocery stores, restaurants, schools. Jen Walling and I, again, we wrote the food scrap composting law for the state of Illinois. Last I checked, Illinois ranked 4th in the country with the opportunities for residents to participate in curbside food scrap composting. We have 14 towns now in DuPage County with that at the curb, but the best is if you can compost at your own home. That saves the most resources, reduces the most truck traffic. Recycling events like recycling extravaganzas improve our recycling. So there's a lot. We are eager to help anybody and anywhere. So recycling extravaganzas, I started these in Wheaton in 1986, and they've just grown across the state, Iowa, Wisconsin, Indiana, and some in Michigan. A 1.5 day kind of activity where people drive up, and the Lions Club is there for eyeglasses and hearing aids, and the scrap metal company comes with a truck, paper shredding, whatever we can get so that residents can have very easy half-a-day type event and help get a lot of things reused, help local not-for-profits, right? As well as get things in the right recycling place. So a really fun event, makes a lot of help, but we're eager to help expand these. And then Liz, thanks for bringing up the pumpkin smash. When Jen and I were working on the food scrap composting law, the first roundtable event was in 2006. Lieutenant Governor Pat Quinn was the keynote speaker. And we talked about the need to have food scrap composting in this agricultural state. And then as we started, we realized we needed something fun, a fun way to get families involved. And that's where the pumpkin smash. No candles should be inside, no stickers. So we're learning to prevent contamination and of course, reduce our waste, reduce methane gas in towns and people worried about reducing their carbon footprint. Composting is a great way to reduce your carbon footprint. So we've written and been lucky to work with a lot of great people on lots of legislation. Green cleaning. I wrote the law for school buses not to idle and things like that. But we need more people to say we care about. And whatever that about is, the more people like you have on this call, the more work we can get done. We have newsletters. One for teachers is Ripples. One is the Green Bulletin, kind of residents, businesses, churches. We have a podcast and you can follow us on all those kinds of social media that I don't really understand. But again, we are eager to help in any way that we can. And the more we help each other, the more we can get done. Thank you. Woo!
Thank you. That was perfect, Kay.
I tried to be fast.
You stuck the landing, nailed it. That was awesome. Thank you so much. I didn't realize your history with not just the organizations, but the movement and all of this in Illinois, literally until yesterday. I mean, that's just it. I'm so excited to know you and to know more about what you do. And people have a lot of questions about the kind of resources that SCARCE brings to bear. So thank you so much for doing that. We'll save those questions for the end. We have another amazingly dynamic speaker yet to come. Don't go anywhere. Our third speaker of the day is Stephanie Katsaros. She is the founder and president of Brightbeat, which is a Chicago-based consultancy that activates environmental stewardship and social responsibility. She's also on the board of directors and is the communications co-chair of the IFSC. And she is involved in so many more different organizations still related to waste. We would take the rest of the time just listing them all. So those are the highlights, and I will let Steph elaborate on other affiliations and organizations and initiatives that she is aware of and wants to share. So thank you, Steph.
Thank you, Liz. And what a great addition Liz is to the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition and the Communications Committee and beyond. It's amazing how much fresh blood gets everyone excited and brings collaboration. And Liz is just, kind of epitomizes that. So thank you. And I will go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Can you all see that okay? Thumbs up. Awesome. So I am going to speak on the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition, and if there's time, I'll introduce a few projects that are linked to Illinois Food Scrap Coalition and linked to composting and food waste reduction. But first, to give you just a 10-second overview of Brightbeat, we work with tons of different organizations. I founded the business in 2010 after working in radio and traveling around the world. And, events and facilities were a lot of where we began, but the importance of working side by side with municipalities became really clear. And I never thought policy mattered. Well, obviously, we all know I was wrong. So, collaboration was a lot of what it took to build sustainability into the projects that Brightbeat worked on. When collaboration has been key in the last 10 years, really working with the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition, which began in 2012. Chicago Sustainability Task Force was just a little before 2010, and Wasted Food Action Alliance started in 2016. So like I said, I do have some items to share if we have enough time about those, but I'm really here to make sure that you're all aware of the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition. So like I said, in 2012, it was started really out of a food scrap collection and composting forum. I want to say it was, if it wasn't at the Botanic Garden, it was up in that neck of the woods. And, advancing diversion and composting of organics in Illinois has been the mission from the beginning. And that's done through advocacy, program implementation, and promotions. So there's an effort to develop the market for compost, as well as outreach and educate around the diversion of food scraps to compost. And we do have 7 committees I'm going to go through them one by one to share a little bit about what they each do, because I really think it's useful to think about how maybe what the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition is involved in relates to what you're doing already. But so you know a little bit about the org, we have general body meetings that happen once a month. About a dozen blog posts a year are online, giving information not only about members that have news to share, but just updates on what's going on in the country. Illinois is now officially a U.S. Composting Council chapter, which has really tapped us into a lot of nationwide advocacy efforts, model language for legislation. And as Liz mentioned, the Illinois or International Composting Awareness Week that we did last week was very much part of a nationwide initiative. So the first committee I'm going to mention is education, and we teach about composting. The Illinois Food Scrap Coalition hosts town halls and forums. We've created documents like one that was shared earlier about the use of compost. But through some amazing grant funding work by 7 Generations Ahead, who is our fiscal sponsor, we've created documents that help laymen, residents understand how to compost and why, but also how to launch municipal composting programs, as well as really see what metrics matter. Going back to what James mentioned, we don't want to figure out what to keep track of, but rather identify what valuable data points really prove out the need to keep food out of landfills, to reduce methane gas emissions, and so on. So that is something that our education committee really does well. And honestly, the messaging of wasted food and climate change is the low-hanging fruit. I mean, we need to tackle climate change, and as that becomes more aware, or people become more aware, and that becomes more obvious, this is the link that we try to draw. So the Market Development Committee, as I mentioned, is really important because we need to get more people using finished compost. When you build the market, it makes the whole process more effective and economically viable. So some of the key points I wanted to share: that minimizing contamination, it's a throughput. Collecting organics involves, food scrap, land and yard waste, manure, biosolids, whatever it may be. The contamination in there results in an inferior product. And this is a business. Manufacturing composting is a business. So minimizing contamination is probably the most important kernel of education that the Market Development Committee, Education Committee, and everyone really focuses on. We also really want to promote the retailers that sell the finished compost. And there's 2 stakeholders that I've included on this slide that I wanted you all to know we need to engage with, and maybe we can help you bring resources to them. If you want your turf fields, your park districts, your school districts, your road projects to be using finished compost for all the benefits that my previous slide mentioned, we really need to be in better contact with them, again, because there are environmental benefits, not only for keeping the food scraps out of the landfill, but also soil remediation, water retention, and many more things that I'm not even the best person to speak on, but I'm familiar enough to tell you. Okay, the other, next, I should say, committee I want to mention is communications, and we focus on growing awareness and access, not only to the resources around composting, but also access to the ability to compost food scraps. And in 2020, our committee redefined or created a mission for the committee itself, and that is to equitably strengthen the composting community and support organizations and individuals to expand access, awareness, and distribution of our Illinois Food Scrap Coalition resources. And the key there is, those fortunate to live on the north side of the city or in the collar counties surrounding Chicago, where there are, they're one of the 63 communities that have residential composting, or very strong bucket programs, or quite frankly, a better economic position to consider composting. we want to disperse that. We want to build more equity into it. And so what we're really trying to do with our committee and with the organization as a whole is to connect to community organizations through whom we can expand the knowledge and value of the resources that we're creating. And lastly, I'm going kind of slowly, we want to use data to effectively communicate impact and then engage organizations like I mentioned before. And I want to mention that getting composting on the radars of municipal entities, be it a county, a city or municipality, is really key and something that IFSC has built resources to support. On the advocacy side, we used to call this committee the policy committee, but we realized that really we are not in the business of trying to get legislators to do things. We reach out to Jen Walling and the Illinois Environmental Council to do those things, but we do create information and hold, like I mentioned, town halls, but also information sessions with legislators to make sure that they're aware of how to start a composting program and why, if they're at a municipal level, or recognizing other communities that are already doing it. And the number has grown now to 63. I believe Deerfield was the latest Illinois community to launch a residential composting program. So the toolkit I want to mention, the food waste reduction toolkit for Illinois schools, is one that was done in partnership with the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition and the Wasted Food Action Alliance. And we have had even schools from Delaware ask for more information on that. So we're really seeing the expansion of our educational resources going beyond our state. The We Compost Committee, and I know we've got a couple, or at least one member of that committee here with us today, our chair, Mary Beth Shea. We have so many entities that are composting. This program began really targeting businesses, mostly restaurants, to promote the fact that they're composting, or to try to get the customers to drop a little business card from the IFSC saying, hey, you should compost. But as you can see on this list and on the map, we have so many entities that are already composting that we want to promote. But I want to ask you, who else should we be engaging with? Townships, grocery stores, food pantries, hospitals and institutions. If they are, we want to recognize them. If they're not composting, what can we do to help? I mentioned if we had time, and I think I have 5 more minutes, I'm going to share a couple of projects that are collaboratively connected to the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition. So the first one is really connected because Walter Willis from Swelco, who's on the board of the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition, and Brightbeat was hired to work with them on this initiative, but we are working with many of the towns, I think, that might be represented here on a Lake County-wide project funded by the USTA, where the goal is to, as it says, develop a stronger, more vibrant circular economy for managing food scraps. And also, though, what we're trying to do is prove out the value, and that's the components there. The demonstration project of applying compost to farmland and community gardens, see the benefit of it. We hope that will grow awareness and interest because of the circularity, develop the market for it, but also looking at the community gardening network and who are we talking to? And I ask the Go Green groups, within your groups, these are advocates who might, well, I'll get to my action items later. But anyway, so working with the community gardening network to strengthen the use of finished compost in those spaces, as well as increasing marketing and education to get residents and hospitals in Lake County to divert their food scraps. The environmental impact is huge. The opportunity to do food recovery and strengthen the community is huge. And this soil probe right here, the photo was taken by Vitas, who works a lot with Kay and others at IFSC, but it shows the impact of putting finished compost in soil. I mean, look at that black gold versus that clay soil that a lot of us have in our backyards or gardens. So that's one project. Real quick, With 7 Generations Ahead, again, as a lead nonprofit, we recently received a grant. This isn't the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition, but the Wasted Food Action Alliance, to build a communications and logistics hub for food recovery in Chicagoland. And this is just in development now. I think we only were told of being awarded the grant 2 weeks ago. So what we're doing is working with over 20 autonomous mutual aid groups, food sovereignty organizations who are on the ground listening to their neighbors, finding out their needs. And what we want to do is just basically better organize the communication to redirect food that maybe can't be accepted by the Greater Chicago Food Depository, for example. We've got trucks that are coming to Lake County and the north suburbs and bringing food down to McCormick Place with Fight to Feed to be distributed. These are all being done kind of on an individual basis through people who know people. And what we really want to try to do is kind of democratize the system to some degree. And so we're doing an assessment of the current food rescue landscape. And in the process of building a more coordinated effort, what we really want to do is bring equity, food sovereignty, and access in places that don't have it now. And it's powerful stuff. And with these organizations who we are finding needs and opportunities to get deeper into the community, I believe composting will be one of the co-located resources that the physical hubs will have. So we're looking to have actually physical hubs where there's greatest need in the Chicago area. I'm not going to say Waukegan is one, but it just comes to mind as, you know, we look at cities, suburbs, or neighborhoods that have need, and then where can we physically support community groups that exist and tell us that a community kitchen is something that they need. Information around the health, what's offered by the healthcare institutions in their area. So that is a very exciting project. And lastly, with the 20 seconds I have, the Chicago Sustainability Task Force and the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition did a forum last year and identified that the fact that most compostable plastics are going in the landfill, and really looking to work more closely with compost facilities that are interested in taking food scraps and are concerned around contamination, partly related to the food service packaging that is not certified compostable. So sort of the long-term goal of this project, which has not yet been funded, but there's a lot of excitement and interest nationwide around it, is that really we will be speaking to more compost facilities, be increasing the communication between them and the haulers, and also their customers, large scale generators in particular, so that when there's a problem, when there's contamination, there's a feedback loop, so that maybe that material wasn't really certified compostable, or maybe the school didn't have someone like Jenny Futterman to be there and teach them what they're doing wrong. So really just trying to build a feedback loop and strengthening the network within the composting infrastructure. And that just, you know, parallels really well with the food rescue circularity and the organic circularity. And, you know, I don't want to talk anymore, but I'll tell you the way to take action would be compost at home, drive the demand for residential composting in your town, if that's not already happening, use compost yourself and share the benefits with your community garden network and elected leaders. Encourage them to maybe include those specs in projects for your public sector. And, you know, ask your restaurants and grocery stores that you frequent if they're composting. Just join the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition and we could teach you all about this. So that is the end. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I like I said, I'm so excited about all of this. I love what all of you are doing and how it all, again, it all fits together. It's all part of the puzzle. We're all part of the solution. And I can't thank you all speakers, presenters enough for joining us today. We do have a number of questions in the chat. I've been tracking them. We'll go in order. I want to say one other thing though on the call to action idea and what we can do. And Stephanie, thank you for ending on that note because it's the perfect segue. So some of you, I I helped, our state senator Laura Fine introduced a Senate resolution recently that would declare last week International Compost Awareness Week. It would recognize that week as Compost Awareness Week in Illinois. And it's hasn't gone to committee yet. It's still moving forward. I'm hoping there won't be any backlash to it. It's an amazingly straightforward page-and-a-half document that lays out all of the reasons that food waste is a problem and composting is a good solution and why we care about it in Illinois. But the reason I'm mentioning that is because the way that happened was I found out California did one, and I asked Senator Fine if we could look at something like that in Illinois, and a month later she introduced it. And then she happened to speak to another group I'm a part of about it, and said, she reiterated to all of us that we cannot be calling our legislators too much. They want to hear from us. You are not bothering them when you call them to say yay or nay on an issue. They want that. You email them, call them, leave them a message, and tell them what you think about these issues, and especially the ones that are the subject of legislation in our state. They care about it, and they want our opinions. So these bills, as they're moving through, like Scarlett's Bee bill, it got hung up in committee the second time around. Amazing 10-year-old girl was not there to shame everybody into voting for it. So it's hung up. There's industry opposition to it. And we all can play a role in moving that forward by not just supporting the bill with our legislators, but getting co-sponsors still to sign on. So that's the kind of stuff we all can do all the time. So thank you guys again for sharing all of your amazing experience and knowledge in this waste and specifically food scrap field. So, okay, to Q&A. So the first question is for James from Jacqueline. 2025 is coming up soon. Where does Illinois stand currently on its diversion targets? Do those targets cover Chicago specifically, which seems to really be struggling with its recycling?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and we're actually not as far off as we might have thought originally. So as of 2018, the statewide diversion rate is 37%, which is markedly higher than many of the other states in the Midwest. And there's a lot of factors that play into that, but a big part of it is because we have recovery facilities for construction materials at a much higher propensity than other areas of the country. So the proposed 40% goal would include Chicago as well. And because Chicago comprises the supermajority of the waste stream in the state, that's where the biggest possibility of growth will end up being. And that's a factor of population, but also the room for improvement that we've seen widely reported for recycling. So in contemplating these goals, one of the objectives that the legislature gave us is that they had to be achievable. And with the recommendations that have been proposed, particularly on the infrastructure front, we're optimistic that 5 years is a realistic window to be able to increase diversion rate by 3% more.
Awesome. Thank you, James. Another question for James. I will do one more. From Jenny Futterman. Did the MMAC discuss single-use product elimination as a way to reduce contamination in waste streams?
Yeah, so this was actually an item that Kay raised during our first meeting in Springfield. And so it's been a topic of conversation on a bit of a rolling basis. One of the ideas behind the matrix approach or the stratified approach that the ISTC developed with the committee was to help incorporate the homogeneity between some of these types of products into a broader structure. One of the things that the group has candidly struggled with is that as constructed, it represents a wide swath of society as well as interests. And as anybody who's participated on the calls can say, I mean, what that means is that not only do you have people from the environmental community and local government that are vocal participants, but you also have manufacturers and members of various industry groups who aren't as keen on pursuing some of those avenues. And so the solution that we came to is that instead of identifying things on an individual basis, we looked at traits for broad categories of materials and then provided solutions for those more holistically. So something that you won't see in the report will be something like a single-use plastics ban Just in looking at the room, there weren't enough votes to be able to clear that. However, what you will see is a more structural approach to identifying materials that are problematic to landfill and currently have problems in recycling, and a path to identifying avenues to avoid them being landfilled or being wasted at all.
Great. Thank you again, James. Thank you so much. And thanks for your question, Jenny and Jacqueline. Our next question is for Kay from Mary Beth. Kay, would you talk more about your water work?
Well, there's a lot of different dimensions. Mary Beth, is there something specific? We work on everything from banning garbage disposals as an idea, to storm drain medallions, to native plants and composting, to reducing fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides. So did you have a particular, Mary Beth, I don't see your picture, but do you have a particular part of water? Because I could talk for days.
I think that's good enough. Just the sort of general categories are good. I can always ask you offline.
Okay, and you know, one of the things James brought up, the drug take back day. That is just such a simple thing for each of our towns to work with our police departments and get that done. All those medicines that people flush down the toilet or pour down the drain, that impacts our water quality today and well into the future. So if we were taking action, helping people to have a place to take it, educating your public about the national events or local events, it's a critical thing to do. We know that during COVID, people have been taking more drugs out of their parents' or their grandparents' medicine cabinet. So it's kind of a win-win. You win for the environment and you win for people right now who might accidentally or on purpose take drugs they shouldn't. It's a really important thing.
Thank you, Kay. Okay, one more related question for you. Do you have any thoughts in general on TerraCycle collections, and how do those dovetail with what SCARCE does?
So we have quite a few TerraCycle collections that we do here at SCARCE. It is a lot of education for people to bring the right things. I see nodding heads, right, Sarah? Yeah, it's really hard to get people to bring the exact right things. And there are those very well-meaning people who bring you way more than they should, thinking it's the right stuff. The other part is I would love to be a little ladybug in one of their facilities and see really what happens to it, because it's really hard to know for sure. And then you also have to think that we're shipping stuff. You know, does it make you feel good to put it in a box, and is it really getting used? So we have a few programs. The Brita filter one, I think, is a good working program. It's very specific, and I think that's good. I also think Rose is on the call, and Rose helps us with our inkjet cartridges and those kinds of things. But there are some others. I'm worried about the toothpaste one. I'm worried about the makeup and shampoo one, just because there are so many different kinds of containers. So I'd like to be that little bug in there and see what's going on myself.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kay, for that insight, because I think TerraCycle is something a lot of us on the community side would, especially in schools and, you know, and other sort of public areas, seem like a good solution. I've also struggled with the shipping idea, but I also figure if it's being recycled and there's not a local option, then that still might be preferable to landfill. But it's hard, if it's not getting processed appropriately on the back end, then maybe not. And obviously it's hard to know that. And especially I love your,
especially if they're being incinerated. So to ship
right.
Crayola markers to Pennsylvania to then be incinerated, I'm not sure that that's valuable at all.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. And I have to say, I love your visual of being a ladybug in the facility instead of a fly on the wall. I'm going to be a ladybug from now on. I love that. So thank you for that visual. So our next question, and we'll probably make it our last question. I apologize. Of course, there's so many questions we could keep asking. There's a lovely conversation going on in the chat for those of you who are interested on curbside pickup issues. Curbside composting issues. And so hop into that if you would like. Our last question is for Stephanie. Stephanie, is the IFSC working with any mutual aid programs already happening or serving underserved communities, something like Love Fridge? And that question's from Gia in Morton Grove.
Thanks, Gia. The Illinois Food Scrap Coalition is developing resources, but hasn't really directly provided them to mutual aid groups. The Wasted Food Action Alliance, which is, you know, many of the same, quite frankly, individuals from the IFSC, are the ones that are working directly with over 20 independent mutual aid groups that are already in communities disproportionately affected by COVID and systemic other longer term issues. And just to because you mentioned Love Fridge, there's also mapping initiatives and efforts going on to identify not only assets, but gaps in infrastructure. And that Love Fridge has worked with University of Chicago on identifying mapping, and we're all kind of sharing information. So IFSC provided Love Fridge with some data to the team that's kind of crunching those numbers. There's a lot of work being done. Also, the Alliance for Health Equity. There's just so many layers of institutions and healthcare, as well as, like I said, on the composting and food rescue side, where we're trying to collaborate to really take resources where they need to go and identify the assets, which include community organizations that are on the ground already, and how do we support them rather than recreate it from up on high? How do we really just support those that are already seated locally?
Thank you so much, Steph. And Gia, thank you for that question. I went ahead and dropped a link to the Wasted Food Action Alliance, which is right now, it's working on its website, right, Steph? Is that correct? I think it is.
Yeah, you provided a different, I'll share a different link.
Okay, good. So there's information about it. I was going to say there's information about it on the 7 Generations Ahead website, which I shared, but Steph has a more direct link also. And as Steph said, there are many similar people involved in these efforts. So Gia, join us. And as Mary Beth said, join the WEEP Compost Committee at the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition. All the committees that Stephanie mentioned are looking to get active members and get people who are interested in being part of this conversation in this movement. So thank you all for listening and for your questions. And again, thank you to our speakers. We are going to shift to Seema's presentation on the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act. Obviously, to our other presenters, you are welcome to stay with us. We'd love to have you, but we appreciate your time. And if you need to sign off, we of course understand. So thank you so much for joining us, and again, for sharing your expertise. And Seema, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Liz, and good afternoon, everyone. I am going to share my screen right now. So I've been tasked today to talk about the provisions in the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act. And actually, before I get into the provisions of the bill, what I want to do is just take a few minutes to talk about how the conversation has shifted from plastic pollution being only an oceans problem to it also being a major contributor to climate change, as well as an environmental justice issue and possibly a health crisis as well. So one of the issues that we have with plastics today is that we've reached an unsustainable pattern of consumption. Global plastic production has increased 20-fold since the 1960s. And what's really astounding is that nearly half of the plastics that have been ever manufactured have been made just in the last 15 years. If we look at yearly plastic production, nearly 40% of it is meant for items that we use once and throw away. Every piece of plastic starts out as a fossil fuel, and it generates greenhouse gas emissions in each stage of the plastic life cycle. And if we continue in the current extraction and manufacturing of plastics as we do today, the accumulation of these greenhouse gas emissions will threaten our ability to keep global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees centigrade. Now, this is really interesting because for years we have been hearing from the plastic industry that recycling is our solution to the waste problem, while they have known for years that it is economically not viable to recycle plastic at a commercial scale. Out of the 6.3 billion tons of plastic waste generated to date, only 9% of it has been recycled. In the United States, we recycle only 8% of our plastic waste. There was a recent report by Greenpeace that said plastic types 1 and 2 are the only types of plastics that are truly recyclable in the United States. All the other types are either being sent to landfills, incinerated, or exported. When plastic waste is exported to a lot of the developing countries, they have waste management systems that are already very strained. And what ends up happening is millions of tons of plastics is either dumped or burnt, which has fueled the global plastic crisis. As far as our health is concerned, plastic has become ubiquitous. And that's because plastic does not biodegrade. It breaks up into microplastics that stay in our environment for hundreds of years. A very recent study has estimated that we're ingesting roughly a credit card worth of plastic each week. Plastics now can be found in drinking water, in soil, in our salt as well. And I think we all know that the chemicals that are used to make plastics, as well as the toxins that are attached to plastics, are linked to several diseases like endocrine disruption and cancer. One of the environmental justice issues with plastic is that, unfortunately, a lot of the plastic extraction, production, and incineration facilities are constructed in low-income communities and communities of color. Cancer Alley, which is home to about 150 oil refineries and petrochemical plants, the people here are 50 times more likely to get cancer than an average person. I think we all are aware of this problem with plastics in our ocean. It's estimated if we continue the production and the consumption as we do today, by 2050, there'll be more plastics in the ocean than there are fish. So the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act was introduced by Senator Merkley and from Oregon and Congressman Lowenthal from California on March 25th. And the bill, essentially one of the most important provisions of the bill is it looks to reduce the hard to recycle single-use plastics. So there will be a ban on plastic carry-out bags, and all other non-plastic carry-out bags will be taxed at 10 cents. Now, the funds that will be collected from this program will be used to provide programs that will distribute reusable carry-out bags, as well as support infrastructure for reuse, recycle, and for reuse, recycle, and composting. The bill also will prohibit other top polluting single-use products. One is expanded polystyrene, which is actually foam. There are a lot of municipalities that have tried to recycle foam, but they have found it to be cost prohibitive because expanded polystyrene contaminates the other recycling materials within the stream, as well as there isn't really a market for recycled foam. The bill will also ban plastic utensils and plastic stirrers, single-use mini shampoos, lotions that are provided in hotels, as well as non-compostable producer stickers. This is, again, another very important piece of the legislation where there'll be a temporary pause on permitting new facilities that create plastics, incinerate plastics, as well as chemical recycling facilities. And the reason why they've included the chemical recycling facilities is because this now is being proposed as a new solution by the plastic industry to the recycling crisis. This particular technology hasn't proven its feasibility yet, and it's very energy and waste intensive. The pause period, the 3-year pause period, will be used to do research as well as to update the regulations on the emissions and the discharges from the allowable emissions and discharges from these facilities in order to protect the frontline communities around them. Extended producer responsibility of the bill. I think this is something that most people are looking forward to. This will shift the burden of the waste from local municipalities to the producers. So the producers of the packaging and the food service products, now they will be responsible for the design, the management, as well as the waste collection, recycling, and cleanup for their products. They will also be required to meet the minimum targets for recycling and reuse, and that's eliminating targets for eliminating packages as well as for reuse materials.
Seema, I'm sorry to interrupt. I need to give you a 2-minute warning. I'm sorry that we're running late, but if you can.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's so
I'm
impressive.
actually going
Thank you.
to, if that's okay, Liz, I'm actually going to skip through a couple of these. What I'll end by saying in terms of the bill is there are many components of the bill that look to reducing single-use plastics, as well as to supporting reuse, refill technology, strengthening environmental justice. So while the bill is very ambitious, it's very comprehensive, it's by no means radical. It builds on current state laws. So we already have 8 states that restrict or have a fees for single-use plastics, 10 states with bottle bills. We have 9 states that are looking at EPR legislation. If you look across the ocean, the European Parliament is going to ban many single-use plastics by July 2021. China, the largest producer of single-use plastics, will phase out a lot of their plastics by 2022. So the Brick Free from Plastic Pollution Act was introduced on March 25th. It has been co-sponsored by over 100 representatives. In Illinois, it's been co-sponsored by Senator Dick Durbin, by Jan Schakowsky from the 9th District, Laura Underwood from the 14th District, Mike Quigley, and Mary Newman. Go Green Vernon Hills met with Congressman Schneider. We had a constituent meeting on April 8th. Go Green Highland Park and Go Green Deerfield were part of the meeting with us, along with a lot of other residents. The congressman was very interested to know about the bill, but he had a lot of questions pertaining to recycling, as to why recycling hasn't worked, why that cannot be the solution. So we followed back with the congressman and had asked him to co-sponsor the bill as part of the Earth Day, but we haven't heard back from him. So our ask for you today is to, if you are in the 10th district, please reach out to Congressman Schneider to ask him to co-sponsor the bill. If you're from other districts and your representatives have co-sponsored, please thank them. But if they haven't, we'd ask that you have a meeting with them and to get them to support the bill. And finally, if you're interested in joining us, we are planning to meet with Senator Duckworth to have her to support and co-sponsor the bill. That's it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seema, for all your hard work. And I'm sorry to condense it. I can tell you, we know that another meeting or part of another meeting is absolutely worthwhile on this subject. So thank you so much for giving us that great overview. And I apologize for cutting it short. So thank you everyone for continuing to stick around, and I will shift it back to Kim and Beth to head to community sharing. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, well, thank you for those amazing presentations. There's so much to learn, and there's so much for our local groups to get involved with. Some of our communities don't have food scrap composting at all, and so there's a lot that we can learn from each other and do. So thank you very much to all of our speakers for sharing this information. We are taking minutes and we're recording the program, and we hope to have it posted either to the Go Green Wilmette YouTube or Go Green Illinois, but we'll let you know where that's going to be. And so with that, we're going to move to the community sharing. This is actually, Go Green Illinois started with that as our main goal, and yet we found that there was so much for us all to learn that we began with all the speaker programs. So we now have about 40 minutes, and we think we've got about 24 suburban communities represented here. Not all of you will have a report. We'll have about, believe it or not, like 90 seconds. This is speed dating. But in July, we're going to have a meeting that we are going to guarantee that we are going to have a longer part just for community sharing. So talk really fast this meeting, but know that in July, you'll have a little bit more time to share what's happening in your communities. So with that, I will be the timer. You will hear a ringy dingy if you run over. And Kim Stone is going to be calling our communities. I believe she's going to start with Z and go to A.
I think someone said I should start in the middle this time.
Oh, you can do that.
So I will start in the middle with LaGrange.
And Kim, do we have about 2 minutes, 90 seconds?
I'm going to say a minute because I think that there's like 20 some communities.
Okay, I'll give it minute 15. How's that?
Perfect.
All right.
Rose, are you still on?
I am. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So in LaGrange, we had a scavenger hunt for Earth Day, our environmental commission, and that was really great. We challenged people to find a solar panel, an LED, a flowering plant, and it was a great way to showcase what we're doing in LaGrange. And we got couples that were new to LaGrange that filled it out, as well as grandparents and their kids. So we handed out saplings that were provided by the MWRD, and that was a really fun way to get people out for Earth Day. We are going to have events in LaGrange, our LGBA, our business association. So our environmental commission is going to audit some of these events to see how we can, where are the compost bins, or recycling bins, and can we set up waste stations? So we're going to audit them this year since we have some new commissioners and see how we can reduce waste at the events going forward. And last but not least, I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of the LaGrange area, and we're going to do a backyard composting webinar and then probably follow it up with an in-person program. It's just really me and a woman from a green team at a church. We're going to show our compost bins, how we do it, really informal, why you should compost in your backyard and how to do it. And I should finally mention that I work for SCARCE. Great job, Kay. Thanks.
Great, thank you. If you want to post something about that scavenger hunt on the Go Green Illinois website, that would be a great model for others to take on as well, I think, if you're willing to share.
Sure.
Okay, we're going to go sort of randomly here from the middle. So Dave, are you still on from Lake County? I don't know if he's still on or not. We're going to go to Lake Forest. Marianne, are either of you on? Okay, Kathy from Libertyville.
I don't really have anything to report.
Okay. I'm sure Jenny will be happy to have 10 extra seconds of time from Highland Park.
Should I go now? Are you putting me at the end or should I go now?
Go now.
Okay, super. We are going to be going back to our farmers market once a month. So excited to see human beings again and talk to them about composting and community solar. We've gotten over 61 people for Go Green Highland Park and community solar with Trajectory and Clearway. So that's big bucks for us, which is great. We are looking into wildlife habitat certification for residents and possibly a larger group. Maybe to get our city there like Evanston has done. And over Earth Day, leading up to Earth Day, we did a Little Things Big Impact campaign where people emailed in just things they do at home, little things they do to personalize it. And that was across all our social media and got a lot of interest this year. And we had someone tracking that. So it was fun to see what you actually get clicks on. If you have someone who can do that, I recommend looking at your metrics and things. And we also have a bike and pedestrian count happening in Highland Park this week, and they're collecting data for future planning. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Gia, are you still on for Morton Grove?
Yep, I'm still here. Morton Grove, the Environment and Natural Resources Commission of the Village has a lot of things going on. We will have a Sustainability Expo happening in person in Morton Grove. We hope to have electric cars featured, as well as our composting programs will be there. That'll be in September, on September 11th. And let's see, then we also have a pumpkin smash coming up in November. That'll be our first annual pumpkin smash we're all very excited about. And we also have an ongoing art project happening with our K through 8 schools here in Morton Grove, where different grade levels will be designing a reusable grocery bag. And then you can purchase those at our farmers markets and in the village. And all of the money from that will go to support sustainability efforts in the village. And then from our Vision Morton Grove group, the Sustainability Action Group we had a cleanup the Sunday after Earth Day. And we went, sorry, I think my volume is being very weird. Anyway, we had a cleanup. We diverted over 200 pounds of garbage and everybody did that individually and then came and met at my house, and we had a native plant giveaway and milkweed seed. So it was really successful. We had over 30 people plus about 10 kids come, and it was a great day out.
Great.
All right, perfect. Kim, Dave Husmuller is signed on and he's got a quick report.
I was just going to go back to him.
Great.
Oh, hi. Thank you. I wanted to thank this group for inspiring me to join with partners in Grays Lake to form our first bike share program in Lake County. And so we joined, the college joined with the Village of Grays Lake, the Park District, the Library District, to separately, because this is Illinois government, we have all these different levels of government, to independently but together form a bike share program where we each sponsored a number of bikes and a rack or two of bikes so that the community of Grays Lake can start to enjoy the benefits of bike share and riding bikes in the community. And so this has been, I don't know, was it 3.5 years ago that this topic was raised at this group? Back when we were meeting live at the Botanic Garden. But I want to thank you all for that inspiration. And, we, part of the what took it so long was there are so many people in Lake County interested in bike share, but none willing to put skin in the game. And so we've done it. And so we're going to record it and see how we do with this, this resource. And so we'll be happy to share the results of how that goes. And we're hoping, I'm thinking that other communities will want to join us too. So Lake County's got a great system of integrated bike paths. And so I think there's a lot of potential for this kind of program. So thanks again for that.
Well, thanks for inspiring us, David. We'll follow your lead, hopefully. Okay, Kim,
Thank you.
next.
Excellent. Thank you. Back to Northbrook. Sarah, are you around? Wait, you're on mute.
Kim, why don't you say who's on deck? Who comes after Northbrook?
Next is Northfield, if somebody is on, and then Park Ridge.
Today we had our first outing since COVID started, which was to Fremont Community Garden, and I highly recommend it. Can you?
Uh-oh, I think we lost our internet.
We seem to have lost you, Sarah. We will come back to you. Hopefully you'll get it figured out. Northfield, is somebody still on from Northfield?
So I will say Northfield's looking for new members. If you know someone in Northfield that would like to participate in Go Green Northfield or even step up and help lead it, make sure they contact the organization.
Lori, are you on from Riverwoods?
I am.
I can't see everybody. And then Skokie is next.
The Riverwoods Preservation Council is continuing its coordination of programs with Brushwood Reserve at Ryerson Reserve. And we are continuing the program on anti-racism and the environment. And starting on May 27th at 5:30, we will have the first of 6 monthly programs addressing racism and the environment. The program on May 27th will be on intersectional environmentalism. So stay tuned for that information. Future sessions in the 6th may discuss some books like Carolyn Finney's Black Faces, White Spaces, and other topics. The second thing is on May 19th, we're going to have a program about Riverwoods backyard habitat with Peggy Simonson of the Citizens Conservation Action Group. It's at 7 p.m. on May 19th. In June or July, we're going to have a program on oaks. It'll be a virtual program, and I'll put that on the website, the Go Green website. And lastly, I'd just like to mention that Brushwood does have an art program. One of Brushwood's focuses is on art and the environment and the healing power of art and the environment. They have a studio art program, and they have a very large storage space where they take recycled art supplies. So if you have art supplies or books and you happen to live north, you can consider donating them to Brushwood at Ryerson. That's it.
Great. I would like to mention that Brushwood has a beautiful facility that you can rent out. My daughter's actually getting married there this summer. And I love the fact that when I write that check for her wedding venue, it's going to the Brushwood Center Arts and Nature Programs.
Excellent.
Skokie. Becky, do you want to report anything from Skokie, or?
I am actually more involved in Evanston, so even though I'm between two worlds, so.
I can report one quick thing from Skokie. I had a conversation with one of your new trustees in Skokie, who is very interested in doing some environmental work at the village level. So we had a long conversation about all sorts of good things that she can do, and I look forward to more action from Skokie with her on your board.
Hey, it's Arlene. I have a little bit of news about Skokie. Arlene from Collective Resource Compost. I had a meeting with their environmental commission leaders yesterday about, how to spread the word that they have a franchise agreement with Collective Resource. And so we're working on yard signs and some other ways to continue to get the word out there.
Excellent. Thank you, Arlene. Okay, we're going to go back, since we're going sort of from the middle randomly. Glencoe, Dudley.
Who's on deck?
Next is Glen Ellen, and then Evanston.
Okay, we're having a number of events coming up in Glencoe. We had on May 22nd, the spring cleanup, what was very well attended. We had about 125 people working and cleaning up parks and road right-of-ways and the beach. We did find, believe it or not, a brand new iPhone on the beach, as well as a dead raccoon. Moving along, we have our recycling and reuse drop-off day, 10 a.m. on May 15th. Unfortunately, we're going to have to limit that to just Glencoe residents. Last year, we were overwhelmed. We filled 2 semi-trucks full of material, and we ended up had to last minute rent some additional trucks. We just were totally overwhelmed with that. We have another thing related to that called the Cleanup Day. That is at 10 a.m. on May 15th, and that's where they patrol the streets and pick up items. Many of these can be recycled, especially metal projects. Let's see, and then we are having on June 12th, our hazardous waste program at the Public Works Department. Some of the other things we're looking at are programs of the library on tree protection and how important trees are, and kind of a birding program. I also want to mention that I was inspired by Highland Park to talk to our police chief about police cars. I convinced him that we should do something. We can't go all electric because we don't have a charger, but he did agree to go ahead to order 2 new hybrid police cars, and we're applying for some grants to get fully charged. So that's how what one community does for another. That's the major things I wanted to mention. I know that some other folks are looking at the leaf blower issue, and that's pretty interesting. I have found out that there are 3 or 4 landscaping firms that are already using electric leaf blowers.
Awesome. Thank you, Dudley. We're going to have to go on to the next community here. Although it's 2:36, we're doing pretty well. Thanks, Dudley. Lots always going on in Glencoe.
Glen Ellen. Is somebody on from Glen Ellen?
Yeah, hi. So we had an Earth Day symposium on the weekend after Earth Day that was sponsored by our Environmental Commission and the Park District. That was a great event because we've been trying to have an Earth Day event for the last 3 years, and COVID and weather has postponed it. So this was virtual. We had a keynote speaker from the Conservation Foundation and then 7 other 30-minute presentations that people can attend. The presentations were all recorded, and there's links with really useful information. We talked about recycling, composting, pollinator-friendly yards, green landscaping, stormwater management. So I can share the link in the chat. And if you have any questions or want to connect with any of the speakers, let me know. We're also doing the DuPage River Sweep this Saturday. So we're doing a cleanup of one of the waterways that connects to the DuPage River here in Glen Ellen. We have 65 people signed up, and I'm not sure what we're going to do with all of them, but they're very enthusiastic and excited. Last is just a question. We have a new village president, and he is very environmentally friendly. He's tasked the Environmental Commission with making our wastewater management facility energy neutral. If anyone has any experience on that or knows anyone who does, okay, well, I have contact Kay, so it'd be great to connect.
And please report back once you have more information about what might work.
Yes, I certainly will.
So others can take that on. Evanston. Who's reporting from Evanston today?
I am. I actually, on my way up here, I had Rachel email me a couple of quick bullets to convey to you. First of all, thank you, Kim and Beth, for hosting this awesome forum, and thank all of you for your interest in the survival of our planet. Let me just scroll over there. We had Rachel is the president of CGE, Citizens for Greener Evanston, and she wanted me to convey to you, we had an amazing Earth Week put on by an exceptional team of volunteers. Videos will be posted on our website soon. We got a shout out from Jack Darren, head of Illinois Sierra Club, for our focus on environmental justice and intersectional environmentalism. We are also thrilled to announce that we've hired our first executive director, Joey Feinstein, to manage all the regular daily and weekly and monthly business of CGE. We're also working with Shore Path Consulting on a theory of change strategic planning process from the top down. Finally, we had a fellow from Kellogg School of Business, Hey Rim, who crafted a membership structure that we will roll out in the coming months, and gladly share anything we can with you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank
you are the first, I believe you are the first of our groups to have a paid executive director, but you're also one of the oldest groups. Congratulations on that.
I should add that they're talking about a paid membership. So I quickly made a donation.
Well, that's awesome. And I know that your new mayor is going to be very interested in environmental initiatives. I will be talking with him shortly about that.
And Kim, if you have a minute to see the video of him during our Earth Week for Everyone events, he was in a great forum with a young lady from Evanston High School, and it was just wonderful. What was the interaction there? Great.
He is a good friend to the environment, even though it doesn't always seem like it's his first issue, but I will be in touch with him. Elmhurst, is somebody still on from Elmhurst?
Yes, hi, thanks. I'm with Elmhurst Cool Cities Coalition, and thank you for this meeting. We do have a municipal curbside composting program, but there's absolutely no education component to that. So this meeting was hugely helpful. Just an update on the Right to Garden bill that this organization helped us promote. It has passed the House and the Senate, and it is moving to Governor Pritzker's desk. So we're thrilled about that. And then finally, one of my colleagues, Karen Patchen, came to a previous meeting, and she shared a little bit about programming that we're going to have in regards to Nature's Best Hope. The Elmhurst Public Library is partnering with us to host a Doug Tallamy presentation, and then we're reaching out to all of our stakeholders to take an educational component, and we think we probably have 12 months worth of content to share with our residents.
Excellent.
Great.
Thanks. Deerfield. Is anyone still on at Deerfield?
Hi there. Go Green Deerfield. We had 2 sites where we had worked with Friends of the Chicago River for cleanup. One site's public, one site's private. Our public site, Brad Schneider came out and talked to our volunteers. Each group had 30 volunteers. That was the cap that was set for by Friends of the Chicago River. We partnered with our park district on one of our sites, and they bought a ton of stuff for us to plant. We cut buckthorn, we pulled garlic mustard. It was great. In April, we started our first residential compost collection, and education is now a big component. Those of us who know about it, we're like, you know, high-fiving nonstop. Our cans are flowing over, and we're still talking about ideas how to educate. So if there are any communities that have a high ratio of residents participating, we'd love to know how you incentivize them. So that's what we're only a month into it. So we're coming up with ways to get the word out. That's all I've got for you right now.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay. Winthrop Harbor. Dorothy, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here. Not a whole lot to report, but we did get the Mayor's Monarch Pledge signed, and I'm still pushing on the composting and waiting for pricing.
Okay, excellent. Highland Park is also on the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. I don't know if any other communities are. Crete, there was somebody from Go Green Crete signed
Can
up.
I ask a question about that? So we now have a new mayor, and but our previous mayor signed. So does that mean we're on it or not? Do I have to get him to sign again? Like how is it grandfathered in or not grandfathered in? The Monarch Pledge.
I think you should look up the program and find out, but it can't hurt to get him to sign, but just assume that he's going to.
Okay, thanks.
Crete, there was somebody from Go Green Crete. Are you still on?
Katie Caldwell, not sure she made it on.
I don't think she's still on.
Okay. Then let's go to Wilmette.
Okay, we've had a lot going on. We just had our 7th native plant sale. We sold 3,100 plants in just over an hour. We raised $6,000. We highly encourage all of you to think about that. We've put 14,000 native plants in the ground through these plant sales. I know Go Green Winnetka is trying to model a sale. I think Deerfield had a sale. It's a great measurable way to improve habitat. At the same time, we collected 87 bikes through Working Bikes. Those are 2 easy, wonderful things to do together. We're having migration bird walks every Sunday in May. Come to Gilson Park and join us, 8 o'clock on Sundays. We have 12 beach cleanups scheduled for this summer every other week. And we're trying to put some permanent beach cleanup stations on. We have had a lot of success with our webinar series. We're recording them and posting them to our YouTube channel. Take a look, go to Go Green Wilmette's YouTube channel. There might be some webinars that you would really enjoy, and feel free to share the links with your groups. We are having our Sustainable Yard Tour again. We realized that by videotaping them last summer and posting them, we've had 1,200 views of that tour, way more than we ever would have had live. You could consider doing 1 or 2 videos of great yards in your communities and start your own online video tour. We're gonna be at the farmer's market. We've just had a great Loyola University intern who's finishing up. Hi, Maria. And we have 2 summer interns from high schools. If you haven't had interns, I highly recommend it. Also, most everybody under 30 can be a videographer. They've all learned how to do it. And finally, the gas-powered leaf blower follow-up meeting is this Friday. I think Maria's been able to do the registration thing. this issue can be solved, and Go Green Winnetka is crushing it. All right, that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Beth. Brookfield. Is anyone still on? I don't know if Katie was on or not. Barrington. Is anyone still on from Barrington? Okay, Winnetka and Vernon Hills are next. So Liz.
Thanks for sticking around. I'll keep it really brief. On the community Go Green Winnetka level, our big event, our big initiative is that we are looking to do not just a native plant sale, as Beth said, but specifically a fall plant sale. So we're working with the woman in Go Green Wilmette who ran their sale this weekend, and we went and observed it, and we're looking to set up a date late summer, early fall, and we obviously will keep all of you posted and share all that information. We're super excited to do it. We had done a sustainable yard tour called Yards That Work in the summers of 2018 and 19. We're not as far along in that planning as Wilmette is, so we are not shifting virtual this year. We're looking to do a single day in-person socially distanced event on something like native plants or sustainable landscaping or something like that in lieu of the yard tour this year, and focus our energies on the plant sale in the fall primarily. And then at the village level, we've got some really cool things going. We have a sustainability, a 2040 comprehensive plan, and the planning process was just getting started on that at the beginning of COVID, and it's all on hold until we can meet again in person to make sure everybody in our community has buy-in or input. But our environmental and forestry chairperson had the genius idea of hiring a work study student, and we've used her to great effect, and an intern could do the same thing, but this woman was exceptional. To create a draft sustainability plan, but it's so cool. It looks like it's final, and it's hard to remember that it's draft. And I'm going to give a shout out to Gia and Vision Morton Grove, and because we use Morton Grove's plan as a model, it follows the GRC2, and it's great. So thank you again. It's a perfect example of best practices and sharing resources and not inventing the wheel. So that's going to be presented to our EFC tomorrow night. Our mayor also did sign the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and we're working on native plants in our parkways is another big issue that's happening at the village, and there's a council meeting on that tonight. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Liz. Seema, last but not least.
So we participated in an Earth Day event hosted by the Vernon Hills Park District. And at that event, we talked about monarch conservation, as well as we handed out milkweeds that was given to us graciously by the Woods and Wetlands Sierra Club. We also had a table to talk about the Vernon Hills ride-along program and about food waste and composting. Last week, we got a call from the Vernon Hills High School, and we're very excited because they are ready to start composting in the lunchroom starting this fall. This is a follow-up from when we had met with them before the pandemic, and just to talk about the process. Go Green Vernon Hills was also interviewed by the village of Vernon Hills about the, again, food waste and composting, why should we compost, and as well as about the ride-along program. I think that's it. And then we're working on the whole Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a few minutes more. If you have anything that you want to add, please put in the chat, and Kim will call on you. I'm going to mention a couple of things. If you are not working with your local school district, you should absolutely suggest that they put together a sustainability team. There's a lot of good work that can be done. I know Seema has done a lot with her school district. So if you're not currently working with the schools, please think about that. Park district as well. Park districts are big, big agencies in our communities, lots of facilities, lots of vehicles. If they don't have a sustainable outlook or plan, that's something that you could help get the ball rolling. I want to go ahead.
Can I add something to that before you say more?
Yeah.
On school districts, there is currently a request out for grant applications from school districts for electric school buses using the Volkswagen settlement money from the state. That application was due starting yesterday. The sooner people get applications in, the more likely it will be that they would actually receive money for buses, and that pays for 75% of the cost of an electric bus. So if your school district has not yet applied, it's worth talking to them quickly about that. Keep going.
Yes, absolutely. New Trier High School applied for a grant 2 years ago, and so they're on the top of the list because they jumped, they jumped at that opportunity. So remember, the pollinator bill is getting a lot of information, and we need to make sure that a very small, that the businesses that make a profit on spraying pesticide in yards, regardless of whether or not there's an actual mosquito problem in that yard, should not be dictating this law. So they need to hear from you about that. Remember, the Illinois Environmental Council, look that up, support that group. They do a lot of hard work, and you can then get lots of alerts. Remember, community solar for residents. There are lots of webinars, also small businesses and faith communities, May 26th. Remember, there's a composting fact sheet that is excellent. That's been put together by Midwest Goes Green and the Illinois Food Scraps Coalition. And remember, renewable energy needs your support. And so let's see, with that, does anyone else have anything? Oh my gosh, yeah. So if anyone has anything else to report, we can. If not, you'll get an invitation to our next meeting, which is July 12th. And we think we're going to be talking, nope, it's July 13th. We may be talking about how communities can write the very, very best tree ordinance to save our urban canopy. There are 2 great webinars, especially one with the Morton Arboretum about tree canopy in the suburbs. Excellent program, and it will convince you that your suburb has a lot of important work to do to protect the trees that you still have and to add more. So
there's one other possibility for that meeting. I haven't even talked to you about this, Beth, yet.
All right.
I just found out that the Chicago Regional Climate Action Plan is going to be unveiled either the 13th or the 14th. It's not the city of Chicago, it's the region.
Regional.
Yeah, and that's through the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. We've been working on that for a couple of years because all of the suburbs are huge if you combine them into one, and most of us don't have the capacity to put in place our own climate action plan. So this is an action plan that would have climate actions that could be undertaken by all of the suburbs in the area. And that's something that's going to be released either on the 13th or the 14th. I will know more as it gets closer.
I've been attending those meetings every month because all of their subject lines are like Regional Climate Action Plan, and I keep thinking it's going to be announced. And it's a big tease every time. So thank you for that information, Kim. I've been waiting to find out when we can see it. And if I want to make one quick announcement, I put it in the chat, but our next Go Green Reads discussion, it will be the night before this meeting. So there won't be another opportunity to announce it. We met last night. We meet every other month, typically the second Monday, so often the night before this group meeting. And on Monday, the 12th, we're discussing Nature's Best Hope by Doug Ptolemy. So I put, like I said, I put a link in the chat to register. You can email gogreenreads@gmail.com and we'll send you info and get you signed up for our great discussion. Thanks.
Okay, AmeriCorps is yeah, Stephanie. So AmeriCorps apparently doesn't have funding for the fellows for the coming year.
I think that's for the prior year. So what happened was this is the Greenest Region Corps. This is also through the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. They've been providing basically a sustainability staff person to a bunch of municipalities over the last few years, and it's an AmeriCorps volunteer who works with many of our municipalities for about a year. They get a stipend for that work, but then they also get an education grant. And there was an issue between the state of Illinois and the federal grant and the timing of those 2 grants. The state did something where they thought they were going to be able to extend the time frame of it. And the federal government did not allow them to do that. And so they are short now, I think about $60,000, which is the education stipend for 11 of the volunteers. And so they have launched a GoFundMe campaign, and they're going to try and raise that money so that they can fully pay these amazing young people who have been working for many of our communities.
Wow.
Stephanie has put the info in the chat. Thank you. So if anyone's interested in donating, I'm going to do that, and would encourage others to do that as well. This should just be a one-time thing. This should not happen again.
Good. All right, so we are just about to adjourn, but couple things I'd like to suggest. If you don't know who your sustainability point person is in your community, that's an ask you should make. Your community, if you said, would you please hire a sustainability manager? They will say, no, there's no money. But it is okay for you to say, all right, we understand that, but who is the person that we should direct all sustainability questions to? And that is a really important first step. We've also made the same ask for all active transportation issues. So once a village government, if they're a little slow to adopt sustainability as a priority, the fact that they have to just think about, well, who would we direct the questions to is a good first step. So with that, Kim, are we ready to conclude? Oh, special thanks to Liz Kunkel for putting this great program together. Thank you so much. And to all of our speakers, it was wonderful, learned a lot. And Kim, is there anything else you'd like to say?
I don't think so. I'm going to stop the recording now. But if anyone wants to stay on for a few minutes and chat, we can keep the meeting open.